Dad Coaster Company.
Busch Gardens, which is a span of two parks that belong to the SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment chain, are two of the most beautiful and most thrilling parks in the United States. These two Busch Gardens parks consist of Busch Gardens Tampa, located in Tampa Bay, Florida, as well as Busch Gardens Williamsburg, located in Williamsburg, Virginia. Considering both parks are part of the same chain and essentially share half of the same name, both parks do share a lot of similarities, but they also are very, very different from each other. There have been many debates as far as which Busch Gardens park is the superior park, Busch Gardens Tampa or Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Many different factors can persuade your decision on this, such as park layout, park theming, total ride lineup, even the coaster lineup. In this video, I want to specifically focus on both of the park's coaster lineups and see which one has the better coaster lineup. I did get the awesome opportunity to visit both Busch Gardens parks within the last year, so I definitely got a good feel for both parks. I've also seen why it's so hard to compare these parks, because Busch Gardens Tampa Bay does some things better than Busch Gardens Williamsburg, but it goes the same way. Busch Gardens Williamsburg does some things better than Busch Gardens Tampa Bay. But enough about debating the actual parks, let's debate their coaster lineups. With the recent opening of Dark Coaster over at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, this gives that park 10 roller coasters, which matches the count over at Busch Gardens Tampa of 10 roller coasters. Both parks have similar coasters with similar manufacturers, as well as even some of the same coasters and manufacturers, but they also have ones that are very different from each other. So I've matched up all 10 coasters at both parks with what I think is its best opponent, even though a lot of these rides may not be the same manufacturer or the same model. The rules of the challenge are simple. We will put one coaster up against the other, and the winner will receive a point. Ties are also allowed to as well. We will start with kind of the more lower tier coasters of each park and we'll work our way up to the big boys. With that being said, our first matchup of the day is between the two Kiddie coasters at both parks. Representing Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, Air Grover, and representing Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Grover's Alpine Express. Both coasters are the exact same model from Zaire, and I did not ride either of these when I went to both Busch Gardens parks, so our first matchup is going to result in a tie. In our second matchup, we have the Battle of the Skyrockets. Representing Busch Gardens Tampa, Tigress, and representing Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Tempesto. Both of these are the same ride model and essentially the same ride experience. I only have ridden Tigress as Tempesto was closed when I visited Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Tigress just gave you your typical ride from a skyrocket, multi-launches as well as multi-inversions throughout the layout. Overall, pretty fun ride. With Tempesto being closed, I have to give the point to Tigress. With that point from Tigress, that pushes Busch Gardens Tampa Bay ahead 2-1. Our third round consists of two of my least favorite coasters that I rode at both parks, and that is Sand Serpent, which is representing Busch Gardens Tampa, and Invader, representing Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Sand Serpent is just your typical family Mack rides Wild Mouse, while Invader is a custom woody layout from GCI. Everybody knows what to expect from a typical Wild Mouse layout: super sharp turns, quick and sudden drops, just an overall fun experience for the family. While Invader kind of brings a full coaster experience to the table, it has a good ride duration. It is a little rough. I think it has good laterals though. I'm going to give this point to Invader. Invader has now knotted it back up at 2. In our fourth round, we have two classics going up against each other. Representing Busch Gardens Tampa, we have Scorpion, the park's Schwarzkopf. And representing Williamsburg, we have the Loch Ness Monster, the park's classic Arrow. Scorpion was definitely a classic ride experience, as it's one of those Schwarzkopfs that has only the lap bar holding you when you're going upside down. When I rode Loch Ness Monster though, my expectations weren't very high, but honestly, Loch Ness Monster blew my expectations out of the water. That ride was really cool, went upside down twice, and also did a helix inside of its cave. That was a really cool element to the ride to me, so I'm giving this point to Loch Ness Monster. Loch Ness Monster has pushed Busch Gardens Williamsburg out to a 3-2 lead. In our fifth round, we have two coasters that are completely different from each other. Representing Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, we have Cobra's Curse. And representing Busch Gardens Williamsburg, we have the park's Zaire coaster, Verbolten. Cobra's Curse is a Mack ride spinning coaster that really caught me by surprise. This was a super fun ride experience. I think the whole family will enjoy this coaster. This coaster had some decent theming throughout the ride as well as even the queue. The experience is unique in itself as well too, as it offers an elevator lift and you even go up the second lift hill backwards too. Although Cobra's Curse does offer a fun and unique ride experience, I think the ride experience on Verbolten is just hands down plain better. You get so much that you could love on this ride. You get theming, you get launches, and you even get a drop track inside the dark portion of the ride. Verbolten kind of blew my mind and quickly became my favorite ride at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. I'm easily taking Verbolten in this matchup, and this will push Busch Gardens Williamsburg up 4-2. In round 6, we have the Battle of the Intamins. We have, representing Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, Cheetah Hunt. And representing Busch Gardens Williamsburg, the new for 2023, Dark Coaster. I thought Cheetah Hunt was a really fun ride. You launch straight out of the station into a turnaround and then you go into a second launch. The whole ride layout was pretty good, I thought. Had one inversion. Thought the ride duration was really good too. There are some really snappy sections of the ride as well where you just snap and whip back and forth. Cheetah Hunt is also probably one of the more popular rides amongst the general public too. Where do I even start with the new Dark Coaster? This ride has opened and has been a great replacement for the old Dark Castle ride, but it has came with some negative reviews as well. At this time they are having capacity issues with Dark Coaster, running I hear 400 to 500 people in 1 hour with one train. That sounds like an issue to me. This is causing the wait times to be absolutely insane too, up to 2 to 3 hours of wait times. The overall ride experience I hear is pretty good though, and you do make 2 laps through the course. Dark Coaster does get points though for being a true family coaster as well as an indoor attraction too whenever it gets blazing hot during the summer. Since I unfortunately did not get to ride Dark Coaster, and since I do not think that it's going to be better than Cheetah Hunt, I'm going to give this point to Cheetah Hunt. Cheetah Hunt brings Busch Gardens Tampa Bay within 1, 4-3. In round 7, it's the Battle of the B&M Dives. Representing Busch Gardens Tampa, we have SheiKra. Representing Busch Gardens Williamsburg, we have Griffin. These dive coasters are very similar. Both opened just 2 years apart, with SheiKra opening up first in 2005. Both are only separated by 5 feet in height, with Griffin being 5 feet taller than SheiKra. Griffin's top speed is also 1 mile per hour faster than SheiKra, at 71 miles per hour. Griffin also has 2 inversions, while SheiKra only has 1. And the ride duration for Griffin is just a tad longer than SheiKra as well. Both rides feature a really cool splashdown, but I like SheiKra's splashdown better. I also like the different elements that SheiKra presents too. Even though Griffin beats out SheiKra in a couple different categories just barely, I'm still taking SheiKra as my preferred B&M dive. With that point, SheiKra ties it all up at 4. In round 8, we have another battle of the B&Ms. This time it's the Battle of the B&M Inverts. From Busch Gardens Tampa, we have Montu. From Busch Gardens Williamsburg, we have Alpengeist. Both of these B&M Inverts are super intense rides. Both inverts have super great theming too. Montu offers 7 inversions while Alpengeist only offers 6. But the first drop on Alpengeist is quite a bit taller than Montu, and it's a little more unique than Montu's first drop as well. Alpengeist runs about 7 miles per hour faster than Montu as well, and it also offers a super intense Cobra roll that Montu doesn't offer. Between the 2 inverts, I'm taking Alpengeist. With that point, Alpengeist pushes Busch Gardens Williamsburg back ahead 5-4. For the 3rd straight round, in round 9, we have another battle of, you guessed it, the B&Ms. This time, from Busch Gardens Tampa, we have Kumba, a B&M sit-down. From Busch Gardens Williamsburg, we have Apollo's Chariot, a B&M Hyper. There's not much you can say about Kumba besides, it's legendary. It's intense. One of the greatest B&Ms ever built. This coaster is relentless, offering 7 inversions. It also offers a super nice long ride duration. And this ride offers one of the most iconic photo opportunities ever. Apollo's Chariot is what you would expect out of a B&M Hyper. This is one of the older Hypers though. I thought the turnaround on Apollo's was pretty cool. It was a helix, but other than that, it's just airtime hill after airtime hill. I did think the first drop on Apollo's was pretty unique. It had a small little drop before you hit the initial big first drop. The first drop kind of had an Orion effect to it, where the first drop is actually what classifies the coaster as a hyper rather than the height of the lift hill. Overall, I just thought Apollo's Chariot was okay. Kumba definitely takes this easily. With that win, Kumba takes us into the final round, tied up at 5. In our 10th and final round, we have two heavyweights from both parks. Representing Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, we have the one, the only, Iron Gwazi, the park's RMC. Representing Busch Gardens Williamsburg, we have one of the park's newest Intamins, opened last year in 2022. Pantheon. Many would consider both of these coasters to be the best coaster in their respective parks. Iron Gwazi is simply one of the greatest roller coasters on this earth. It's got so much that you could want in a roller coaster. It's got height, it's got speed, it's got inversions, it's got insane elements that you've never seen before. And Iron Gwazi just has the awesome fact of it that it was brought back to life from RMC, from what the old Gwazi used to be. Pantheon, however, was built completely from the ground up. This ride experience is a lot different from Iron Gwazi's, but it does offer some of the same elements. It also offers elements that are completely different, such as the spike and the multi-launches that it offers. Overall, both rides do share one definite thing in common, and that is they do not have tons of theming around the ride. Both coasters look like they were just plopped down in the middle of an open plot of land. Although Pantheon was such a fantastic and fun ride, I just prefer Iron Gwazi definitely. Iron Gwazi just brings so much to the table, and that first drop is one of the best first drops you can ever experience on an RMC, let alone any coaster in the world. A couple of the same elements that both rides do have, such as the 0G stall, Iron Gwazi definitely does these moments better. With this win in the final round, Busch Gardens Tampa Bay takes the victory. I think Busch Gardens Tampa Bay does truly edge out Williamsburg just barely with a better coaster lineup. I think if Busch Gardens Williamsburg added something like maybe an RMC or a B&M Giga, this would slightly push them ahead of Tampa Bay, but at this point in time, Tampa Bay definitely edges Williamsburg on the better coaster lineup. Let me know in the comments section what you guys think as far as who has the better coaster lineup, Busch Gardens Williamsburg or Busch Gardens Tampa Bay. Also, let me know what your favorite coasters are in both parks. I want to thank you guys for checking out today's video. Don't forget to subscribe to the Dad Coaster Co. YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram. Check out the Dad Coaster Co. podcast, which is now live wherever you get your podcast from. Also, check out my most recent content from my recent trip to Busch Gardens Williamsburg. I also have content from my trip to Busch Gardens Tampa that I took last year. Check those videos out, guys. Appreciate it. See ya.
Dad Coaster Company.